great column yesterday on the genesis and the completion of the Julio Jones trade. If you could boil it down to a few minutes here, why did he go and how did he get to Tennessee? Best you can tell.
Yeah. I think I saw something from your show yesterday where you were talking about like the price, right?
Yep.
Like, so it's a 2 and a 4, was a 6 coming back with him. And I know a lot of people are going to look at that and say, well, wow, like, why couldn't we have him for that? I think it's complex, and I think part of it is the price tag, how much he costs. I think a part of it's his injury history, the fact that, he probably isn't going to be able to practice for you day to day. You're going to have to manage him a certain way, which certain coaches have feelings about their best players being in that sort of position, especially when they're new. But I think the main thing is the age. And, I've looked back at this, over the last few weeks. There have been 11 trades of non-quarterbacks for first-round picks over the last, I think it's 4 years, right? Every one of those players was 27 years old or younger. Julio's 32. Then I went another 5 years back. The oldest player I could find the previous 5 years was Jimmy Graham, who was 28, right? I can't find a non-quarterback in NFL. I just couldn't find one. Maybe there is one. I couldn't find a non-quarterback over 30 in NFL history who was traded for a first-round pick. It's right or wrong. It's what the league is. The league doesn't pay age generally, and the league doesn't fork big draft capital for age. So I think that's why the price tag was where it was. And, I think the other important thing to remember here, and this is sort of how I led that column, this has been 2 years in the making, and I don't think that anybody should be pointing the finger at Terry Fontenot or Arthur Smith in Atlanta. I think this really goes back to the contract negotiation 2 years ago, when quietly at one point Julio actually asked out then. This is 2 years ago. He's basically told the team, I wouldn't mind being traded if we can't get a new contract done. And really, I think that had a chilling effect on the relationship between the organization and the player. And then, I think the one guy who was sort of Julio's confidant through all of that was Dan Quinn. I think once they fired Dan Quinn, and I'm not saying they were wrong for doing it, but once they fired Dan Quinn last October, and that was sort of the last piece of the relationship, maybe the last piece of the Jenga tower getting pulled out, and I think at that point sort of became a complete where the Falcons were going to have these cap problems. They've got 5 guys on their roster: Deion Jones, Jake Matthews, Grady Jarrett, Matt Ryan, and Julio Jones, with huge numbers. Julio wanted out. And, because of where he was and the way he felt about everything, it made sense to move him over the other 4.
And did the Falcons freak when he said what he said on the air without knowing he was on the air? Did they lose their minds?
Yeah, they were upset. They were very upset. I can tell you that because they'd worked really hard to kind of keep most of this under wraps. And to be able to keep it quiet that Julio wanted out for almost 2 years, or that Julio had asked for that 2 years ago. And then, the face-to-face conversation or the man-to-man conversation that Arthur Smith and Julio Jones had where, Arthur basically promised Julio, we're not going to let this get out, that you've asked for a trade. In fact, they worked so hard for 2.5 months to do that. And the whole thing came apart because Julio was caught off guard and didn't know he was on TV, thought he was just talking to a buddy of his on the phone. And if you've listened to Julio's tone, Rich, I'm sure you could pick up, that's what it sounded like he thought the setting was. I think that's why the Falcons were so upset about it. I don't know if it went to the league level or if the league talked to Fox or anything like that, but I do know the Falcons had a pretty big issue with Julio being put in that spot.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.